do not get answered for you today. As always, you can reach out to the FEMA News Desk at FEMA-news-desk@fema.dhs.gov for any follow-up questions, etc. And finally, we ask that you keep the ASL interpreter.
Oh my gosh, here he is, here he is. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello, hello.
You guys, we appreciate you very much. Thanks so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning. I'm here with Jim Bush, Senior Director of External Affairs for FPL, Dane Eagle, Secretary of DEO, Jimmy Petronas, our Chief Financial Officer, and David Diaz, Area Manager for Florida Power and Light. We are at the Columbia County Fairgrounds, where we have about 19,000 restoration personnel that have started to stage linemen, tree trimmers, employees, contractors, vegetation personnel, and support staff from over 30 states. We know that the staging starts here, and then it gets deployed across the state ahead of the storm. And so you have folks, obviously that Southwest Florida area is going to be a major source of concern, but you're going to see needs for power restoration in all, really, many parts of this state. We have bearing down on the southwest coast of Florida a really monster hurricane. This is a hurricane that is strengthened. It is Category 4 plus. It may be a Category 5 by the time it hits the Florida coast. We've been in contact all morning with a lot of the local officials in places like Charlotte and Lee County, and they understand that this is going to be a major impact. We're asked about some of the evacuations, and basically what they report to me is that we were talking to the folks in Charlotte. Most of the people in those vulnerable areas did leave. Not everybody did, and that was provided, the mandatory. Some just did not do that. So they're keeping tabs on kind of where you still have people in very vulnerable locations. But you have a Category 5 storm hit. That's going to produce an enormous amount of storm surge. It's obviously going to have very ferocious winds, and it's going to be life-threatening. And so people are taking a risk with their health, their safety, and their lives by being in the eye of that storm. Nevertheless, you do have search and rescue that are going to be poised to go to respond to people that are in difficult circumstances once the storm breaks through. Of course, safety is what we've been stressing in the preparations over these many days leading up to this storm. And you've had millions and millions of Floridians who have made preparations. Many have evacuated to higher ground and safer surroundings. And of course, you have local level officials, state, as well as federal marshaling. This is an unprecedented amount of resources that have been marshaled to respond to Hurricane Ian. We did this in the run-up to Hurricane Dorian, which was expected to hit Florida as a Cat 5. Fortunately, it turned north and rode the east coast of Florida without having a direct impact. But that was a massive mobilization. This is more than that. And we understand how significant this storm is. And even when it was kind of a disorganized system far away, we saw the potential for what this could do. The power restoration and the resumption of services is something that's very important. You look at the number of people that are on the southwest coast of Florida, for example. Fortunately, most of them are not going to have their homes destroyed, but almost all of them are going to lose power, and you're going to have services that are going to be interrupted. So resuming services is a top priority. That's going to require to make sure that the bridges are safe. It's going to make sure that the roadways are clear of any debris so these guys can get in and do their work. It's also something that given the severity of this storm, there's a difference between simply having a down power line and repairing that, which you would do on normal types of storms, and then having major structural damage to the underlying electrical infrastructure. And when you have a Category 5 storm hitting, potentially, when you have massive storm surge, that is going to interrupt, most likely, a lot of the underlying infrastructure. And so when FPL and other companies are going in, some of those tasks are going to be, you're going to have to rebuild some of this stuff. And so the folks in those affected areas should just understand that if it's as simple as simply just hooking up a few more power lines, then that's what they'll do. But in those areas that are going to have the most severe impact, it's likely going to require to have some re-engineering, to have some structural fixes, and that's going to require manpower, but it's just going to take a little bit more time. So people understand. I was able to speak to the president of FPL. They understand how significant this is. They understand how important it is to get the services back up and running, but we also understand the severity of this storm and the really, really catastrophic damage that it can inflict on the coast, on the southwest coast of Florida. You are starting to see power outages across the state, but you're going to see way, way more over the next 48 hours. I mean, you're going to have millions of people without power in this state within the next 48 hours, no question. This morning, Kevin Guthrie, our director of the Florida Department of Emergency Management, has asked for additional airlift, hoists, and high water vehicles from the Department of Defense in coordination of FEMA. The SecDef has approved Florida's request for dual status of our National Guard forces under Title 10 to provide additional resources and additional forces, and we're really thankful for the fulfillment of that request. We've got about 1,200 personnel for our Florida Department of Transportation that are on standby to perform cut and toss operations. These guys can't work if they can't get to where they're going, and so that's the top priority for the Florida Department of Transportation as well as Florida Highway Patrol to clear these roads, to make sure that the bridges are safe, and to really green light these operations to get back into these communities. In Southwest Florida, this is a lesson from Irma. They have people that they're calling leave behind teams, so that when the storm passes, their job is to clear the runways and make sure that we can resume air operations as quickly as possible. There's going to be a need to bring in things like food and water via fixed-wing aircraft, and so you want to have those runways up and running as soon as possible. Obviously, some of them could be underwater. I mean, there's going to be things that go into that, but having those folks on the ground there to do it I think is going to make a big, big difference. We have 5,000 guardsmen. We have 2,000 from other states. We've got 9 Chinooks, rotary wing aircraft that are ready to respond. Of course, Jimmy Petronas has been talking about our urban search and rescue teams. 5 of them are ready to go. And they will be in that to commence rescue operations as soon as it's safe to do so. Our Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has placed their Special Operations Group in Broward County. That's high water vehicles, shallow draft boats, and helicopters that are ready for immediate deployment once it is safe to do so. I want to thank, we now have total throughout the state. We've got over 40,000 personnel, linemen, and associated personnel that are involved with restoration of electrical services and power services that are stationed in the state of Florida. And these are folks that are staged across the state of Florida. If you look in southwest Florida, you're going to have movement, less likely from southeast for additional surge of resources. Of course, this staging area is going to send people all across the state. I know FPL is mindful of, yes, we're going to have a catastrophic impact in southwest Florida, but this thing is going to, really barrel across the state. It's going to be a strong storm. I mean, it's going to weaken once it gets on shore, but you're going to end up, you could end up in Central Florida to have winds, certainly gusts that would be hurricane force. It's going to at least be a tropical storm as it barrels across. That's going to cause problems with the vegetation. It's going to cause problems with trees. The ground's already wet based on the amount of precipitation we have. That's ripe conditions for trees to fall over. That means more power lines are down. So that's going to have a cascading effect. So the most significant impacts will obviously be the landfall, but you're going to have other impacts. And so that's why you have these folks staged. That's why you have so many people, because there's going to be a lot of different places around the state of Florida where they're going to have to respond to. We now have 26 states that have sent us support right now, including Tennessee, Virginia, Montana, Louisiana, New York, Colorado, Indiana, New Jersey, and Georgia. I want to thank them for their support. It's much appreciated. I've been in contact personally, but then also the Florida Department of Emergency Management. We're in contact with the local folks, particularly in Southwest Florida, about needs, and their needs have been met. Obviously, once the storm hits, there's going to be additional needs, and we stand by ready to offer the support in that regard. It's very, very important. We are going to have significant rescue operations that are going to have to be done, because you have some people, not most, but you do have some people who've chosen to hunker down in some very vulnerable areas. And so that is going to be something that I know that they're keeping a very close eye on. They're going to monitor the impacts of the storm and then monitor how those folks have been able to weather it. But we anticipate, whether it's ground, water, air, all different types of ways to go in and help people. That's going to commence immediately upon this storm hitting. Pray for people. This is a major, major storm. You never want to see any storms hit, because it creates a lot of problems. But I'll tell you, the state has done a lot of storms over the past. There's some you deal with. It's never fun. It's never fun to have damage. It's never fun to see flooding. It's never fun to see power interrupted. But you kind of deal with it, and then you move forward. There's some storms that really leave an indelible impact, and we've been working with the folks up in Northwest Florida on Hurricane Michael. That was a major storm. There are obviously people that were directly impacted. We had fatalities as a result of that storm. But then you had so many other things that have happened all the way to this day. That recovery goes on. This is going to be one of those historic storms, and it's going to really, shape the communities in Southwest Florida and have a profound impact on our state. So we just ask people for their thoughts and their prayers. We know there's a lot of people that want to be helpful in a variety of ways. As this goes, we'll be calling on more and more people to pitch in a variety of different capacities. Not everyone is a skilled lineman who can go in and do that. Not everyone can operate special operations to go and rescue people, but some people can volunteer. Some people can help with folks who've been displaced, and there's going to be a need for all of that as this storm goes through and as we assess the damage that has been done. I'm thankful for what they're doing here with Florida Power and Light. This is something that when you're a major Florida-based company, this is just part of what you do with your business. And I'm happy that they've really leaned in on this and really marshaled a tremendous amount of resources to be able to offer the quickest and most effective response possible that they can do as a company. And I know there's going to be a lot of Floridians that are going to be really happy about that. This is not an easy thing. These power problems are not going to be easy, but I think they're committed to putting the manpower in place, spending the resources necessary to have as most successful conclusion as we can. So we're going to hear from some folks from FPL. We're also going to hear from Dane Eagle and Jimmy Petronis. So Jim Bush, Senior Director for External Affairs FPL, you want to say a few things?
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. My name is Jim Bush. I'm a Director of External Affairs for Florida Power and Light. On behalf of the FPL, we want to thank Governor DeSantis for coming out to greet the men and women who have come to respond to Hurricane Ian. We have assembled a restoration workforce of more than 19,000. That includes FPL employees, contractors, and men and women from partner utilities from around the country. There are more than 30 states represented here today. We have line workers who traveled in at this site from as far as Texas and Oklahoma, Minnesota, and North Dakota. all to help Florida respond to this challenge. There have been many times that FPL employees have traveled to other states to help them when they were in need, and now they're here to return the favor, and we're very grateful for them for that. Here at the Lake City processing site, these men and women will be briefed on the restoration challenges ahead. We will share our work and processes for storm procedures so that everybody is onboarded and ready to go. They will then fan out across the state and be positioned at 37 work bases that are currently close to the areas that will be most highly impacted. And they will work around the clock until power is restored for everybody as quickly and as safely as possible. It won't be easy. We anticipate that there'll be many downed trees and debris, perhaps tornado damage, and in many areas flooded conditions throughout our service territory. But these men and women will work extended hours, 16-hour days in some pretty difficult conditions, and as I mentioned, they'll work around the clock until power is restored to the last FPL customer. Thank you, Governor DeSantis and the state, for being here and supporting us, and for the emergency declaration, and for all of the men and women who have traveled in to help us respond to this storm. Thank you.
Okay. All right, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. I just want to assure all of our customers that we are executing our plan. We have already deployed, as the governor mentioned, resources across the entire state who are ready